Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle. Today we have with us Terra Winston, who is the founder of Interact Consulting. Welcome to the program, Terra.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Hey, so tell us a little bit about your firm, your background, what led you to found your firm Interact Consulting, and what is your focus?
Sure. I am a reformed engineer. After years of learning how things worked, I realized I didn't care how they worked. I just liked that they worked. But I was so curious about how people worked, how they work together. And so I ended up kind of taking this analytical mind and applying it towards humanity. And so Interact Consulting is my baby that came out of this. It's where I help good people do great things. And so there's so much around how to be successful, but in the margins, the places where the academic version and the realities hit, that's where I get to help my corporate clients, my individuals, and my entrepreneurs navigate those spaces to really get what they want.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think of you go to a conference, 2-day conference, you learn a lot, you're loving it, you take notes, and a percentage of the attendees leave their notes at the conference, another percentage leave them on the floor of their car, and only 0.0000 whatever percent will actually implement things. So you're talking about going, okay, we got the head knowledge, we know what you should be doing, but now let's just do it, and let's do it in a structured and precise way to get results.
It is so true. I for a long time was in corporate America, and I had a great boss. I loved what I did, but I looked up and I didn't want anyone else's job. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. And I realized that I was so passionate about helping people figure out the truth of it. And I actually went to my boss one day, and I told her I had lost my religion on this whole leadership development thing. And after she laughed at me, I said, look, we keep training people and they're still bad. like there's a whole industry. Because think about all the classes for everyone who's listening that, if you still work in corporate America or corporate whatever country you're in, there's all kinds of training. And then the first thing you ask is, did my manager go through this? Because he or she is terrible.
Yep.
And so it's like dieting. It's not that we don't know that eating well and exercising is the right answer. It's just that chocolate is delicious. It's just that, putting that work into action, it's hard. It takes work, and it is thankless. And so what's nice for me is I get to stand between what you should be doing. We read it in all the books. You heard it in the classes. And then the question is, how do we take who you are uniquely? And rather than just say, just be something different or be better, let's use that to get the impact that you want. That's where success lies, and allows you to live the life that you want and to be successful.
Well, I think there's two sides of that coin, which is, A, you need to know what you want, and I think that a lot of people would say to you, I don't know. They've got their nose to the grindstone so much, and they can't lift their head up out of their books or, so to speak, long enough to go, well, what would I really want? And I think that sometimes that question, well, what would you do if you knew you could not fail and money was not the object? And I think that's where they go, oh, well, I would do whatever. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe we need to do some work around that because we need to monetize it. But I think that's where you get people to start thinking creatively, right?
Yes. And Mike, you are so right. People will say, look, I don't know what I want. If I knew what I wanted, I would have done it already. Yep. And then you start to talk to them, and you start to realize that it leaks around the edges. Most people, deep down, they know what they would do, but it's all the other voices in their head that they either tell them it's ridiculous, it's not possible, it's selfish, like, who does that? right?
Yeah.
And so we start to discount that this thing that I think I want can't be the right answer, and therefore I have no answer. And once you start chipping away at it, so let's be honest. If you're 45 years old and deep down inside you really want to play in the NBA, we probably can't get you there. However, if you're willing to embrace that that's what you want, we can reverse engineer. We can figure out what it is about this fantasy of the NBA that you want, and give you more elements of that life. So maybe you don't get that thing, but that becomes the launch pad for something fabulous. And people just don't give themselves permission to launch.
Because maybe it wasn't playing in the NBA per se, it was the idea of whatever, right? Because it's kind of like when you ask someone a question, you go, well, why? Oh, well, because, well, what's important about that to you? Oh, and you go 3, 4, 5 layers deep, and you get to the real deal. So if playing in the NBA was the initial answer, but that's not feasible for whatever reason, well, maybe they were interested in, well, I just like whatever, team sports. Oh, well, maybe we can structure a business around you training kids to be more team. I would love that. That would be awesome. And then now you're monetizing, and they're like, oh, playing in the NBA was just, that was just my first knee-jerk reaction. So I think that's a really powerful point.
And it's so funny. I have to have this conversation with entrepreneurs all the time to think about the ecosystem around the thing that you love. So maybe you just love the NBA. You love the smell of the auditorium and the feel and all that. Do you know how many businesses you could create that allow you to get closer to the NBA? Everything from ticket sales to making balls to one of my high school friends is involved in a business that basically helps to train kids for them it's for baseball to be seen on big leagues. There are 1,000,001 ways to monetize a love of the NBA if you're willing to look and think about the entire ecosystem strategically. And so, yes, it may be that there's something else that you get from it, but honestly, it's okay if that's your thing. But you're creative about it, but you have to claim it and give yourself permission for that to be okay.
Well, and another thing is what you focus on becomes reality, and it's not like in a weird ooey gooey weird way. It's because if you start crystallizing what you really want, kind of like Think and Grow Rich, that definite major purpose. So if you have that in your mind, then you start noticing things around you like, well, you know what? Here's this night class I can take for 2 weekends on X. Or, hey, you know what? Here's this guy that already does it. I'm going to see if he can mentor me. Or you start picking up things because mainly you started focusing on it, and it gets you closer and closer to that goal. I think that's another huge piece.
Oh, it's huge. It really is. And, I often will, the very first step, if someone, they're like, okay, I think I want this, I'm not really sure, is I will tell them to find their tribe, right?
Yep.
Find the people that enjoy talking about, thinking about, doing this type of thing. And don't go there with an agenda. Just go because you love it too.
Yeah.
And by spending time in that way, number one, it's a connection that we as humans need. It will increase your joy, and the more you can dial up joy and happiness in your life in just a general area, the clearer your vision can be, because you're not trying to make this one thing all your happiness. Right, so it serves that purpose. But then you will get a chance to hear all the things that you didn't even know. There are worlds and businesses and jobs that you never imagined existed, and opportunities that abound. And so if you just kind of bathe in that space, then you will find there's so much that you can be open to. And again, that goes back, that's that Think and Grow Rich connection. Like all of a sudden, like these things will magically appear, but it was because you put yourself in a space to see them.
Yeah, I love that mindset. Makes me think of now from the other side of the spectrum, what advice do you have for entrepreneurs who've lost their passion or enjoyment?
That I would say that is one of the scary and probably most predictable things about entrepreneurship, right? There's this high of finally stepping off into the risk of entrepreneurship and building it. And then after a while, there's this piece where you're like, wait a minute, I'm just working. right? That all that excitement I had when I first started is kind of gone. And that it could be really scary, honestly, right? Because you start thinking, well, what, I could probably have a job and someone paying for some benefits for me if I'm going to feel this way. So my core advice is if anyone is feeling this way, go back to your why. There was a reason why you started this business. It might have been because you wanted freedom. It could have been that you wanted the financial to build wealth. It could be because it's a topic that you love. So refocus on your why. And then with a really objective eye, look at the parts of your business that are distracting you from your why. Now, sometimes it's because let's be honest, there are parts of running a business that we don't love. Like, for whatever reason we got into this, there's just a lot of just keeping the business running that, you may not have passion for. Some people love accounting. I am not the passionate accountant girl, I got to tell you. Anytime I have to sit down with them, I'm like, oh. And so where I found that was creating distance, the question was, can I outsource it? Or can I automate it? Can I find someone to help me, or find something that allows me to step back more into the things that I love? Now, I get it if you may not be at a place where you can completely outsource or even automate some of the things that you don't love. If that's the case, then you need to find ways to add more of what you love, right? It may be in small moments, right? So Mike, if you got into this game because you love helping people, fully get their business to where they want to go, talk to a young entrepreneur, volunteer for some programs that help small businesses, kind of get to the stage that you are, just have a mentoring conversation with one person. Just that little bit will help you kind of get back into your headspace and reclaim your passion. And once you are back on stable ground, emotionally, then my challenge to you is to look at what needs to be done differently in your business, just from general. Like our businesses tend to stagnate. It's interesting. If you think back to lots of big companies, we will always lament that there was every couple of years the walls seem to shake, right? And start moving pieces around. You're like, oh yeah, here we go, another reorg. There's something to be said about having some reason to look at the how you get business done and say, maybe that's not serving me anymore. It's so weird. We leave companies and then we recreate the things that we've already seen, or we Google. There is so much information about how to run a company, and there are a million ways to do it. And we decide that someone else's way is the way we have to do it, right? And so we start putting these structures together. So really analyze, like, is this the best way for me to run my business, not for somebody else? This is the best way for me to run my business. And once you align those pieces, you'll start to see that passion come back.
And I would say that when that's aligned and passion is coming back, now it feels authentic. And it's kind of like I was at a presentation literally this morning where the person said, gingivitis is bad, plaque is bad, but there's nothing worse than commission breath. Meaning, you get hungry and pushy and a salesperson and they push, and it's like, back off. So when you got that passion, it becomes very authentic, and they can tell that you care about them, and you come at that engagement, interaction, relationship very much, how can I help? And I think that's a huge level to get to. So any thoughts here as we wrap up with what can an entrepreneur do to build and maintain that authentic business approach?
Oh, I love that question. Because I think authenticity is one of those hallmarks as our culture changes, and this is not just in the U.S., this is global, that people are looking for that. The old sales techniques, the commission breath, it doesn't work anymore. And if it is working for you, it eventually, as your buyers change, it will stop working. And so I think it's really, really important to do that. And so I ask people to look at not just your purpose, but what are your core values? What is your why? And then look at every aspect of running your business and say, is it built to support that value? So let me give you, it sounds very crazy. Let me give you a very quick example. I had a conversation recently with a young man who was trying to create a big music festival in Russia, and I said, do you know what your purpose is? And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, what do you want people to feel? Like, why do you do this? He said, there's unity in the music. We have all these thousands of people on a football field dancing together. Like, it was, it was a very emotional kind of speech. I said, okay, so I need you to look at every aspect of building this festival from that space. What is the unity way to create security? What is the unity way to run marketing? What is the unity way? And he said, well, that just sounds crazy, Terra. But he then reflected on the fact that he had gone to another festival, and it was all about like energy, I think was the idea. But then they got to security, and the system was run so poorly that it took them forever to get in. And the security guys were very gruff when there was mistakes, or you didn't have your tickets or all that kind of thing. And so he said, I got in, and he said, I looked at my friend and said, yeah, you can tell they did this for the money. I was like, and it was all lost. Right? So that's the key. And so to create an authentic business, take what your core values are and then look at the traditional operations and say, I need to do sales. If my value is around integrity, or if my value is around care for others or whatever, am I selling in a caring way? Because otherwise you will be incongruous with the thing that you say that you are and the way people see you, because they only see you through your actions. No one can read your mind. Mm-hmm. And so they will look at the way you operate in your business, the places it touches them, and then they will make a decision as to what your identity is. And so being authentic means processing those things.
And like the old saying goes, you can't get a second chance to make a first impression, so that authenticity can't be like, oh, hold on. Okay, here's what I should have done, because it's like, next.
Yes.
You just have to be it. You have to do it. I think that's a really huge piece. So what's a good way for people to learn more about your firm and maybe engage with you and get to know you a little bit better?
I would absolutely love to connect with all of you guys. You can catch me on the social media, the Twitters, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, all the grams and the books at Terra Winston. That's TE 2 R's A Winston. Also, stop by one of my websites, inTerractions. It's inTerractions.com. That's where I have much more the individual conversations and advice that I talk to my coachees about, and whether it be entrepreneurs or corporate executives. Stop by, leave me a message. I just love to connect with like-minded people.
Well, Terra, it's wonderful getting to know you. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come and chat.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for doing this.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.